The Vanguard. The UES Vanguard hung in space, a gleaming titanium arrowhead against the backdrop of infinite stars. Captain Mira Sedhana sat in her command chair on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic displays surrounding her. At 450 meters long, the Vanguard was a Leviathan, humanity's largest and most advanced starship. Her revolutionary quantum flux drive, a tangle of glowing conduits and shimmering field generators, allowed the vessel to slip through the fabric of space-time like a needle through silk. Impervious meta-alloy armor could shrug off the fiercest of bombardments. A vast array of particle beams, plasma cannons, and kinetic launchers studded her angular hull, ready to unleash the wrath of an angry god. But for all her fierce beauty and unrivaled might, the Vanguard was as yet untested. Built in secret in the shipyards of Lunar Base Aristotle, she'd been deployed before the paint had even dried on her hull. Tensions with the Sino-Russian Confederacy had reached a breaking point, and the UN needed a show of force to keep the peace. What better way than to unveil a warship that redefined state-of-the-art? Sedhana ran a hand through her short, raven-black hair, feeling the weight of responsibility press down on her. Her crew was the best Earth had to offer, a diverse mix of brilliant scientists, grizzled veterans, and bright-eyed recruits drawn from every corner of the globe. They'd trained relentlessly, drilled on every subsystem and contingency until they could operate the ship in their sleep. But would it be enough when the shooting started? She shook off the thought. Second-guessing served no one, least of all her crew. They'd find out soon enough what the Vanguard was made of. "Status report," Sedhana called out, her voice clear and commanding. "All systems nominal," replied her XO, Commander Laiwi. His voice was calm, almost serene, but Sedhana knew him well enough to detect the undercurrent of excitement. "Quantum flux drive is spooled up and ready. Weapons are primed and on standby. The crew is at battle stations." Sedhana nodded. "Very good. Helm, take us out." 1/4 impulse. "Aye, Captain." 1/4 impulse. The helmsman, Lieutenant Ava Moreno, deftly manipulated the holographic controls. On the view screen, the pinpricks of distant stars seemed to rotate as the Vanguard slid forward, picking up speed. Sedhana felt the faintest of vibrations through the deck plates, a subtle reminder of the immense energies churning within the ship's reactor core. "Captain," the voice belonged to Lieutenant Commander Tashra, the Vanguard's Andorian communications officer. "I'm picking up a distress signal on an uncharted frequency." Sedhana frowned. Uncharted frequencies were usually the domain of smugglers, pirates, and others who preferred to operate outside the bounds of international law. Still, a distress signal was a distress signal. "Put it on speakers," she ordered. A burst of static filled the bridge, interspersed with fragments of garbled speech. Tashra worked furiously at her console, fingers flying over the controls as she tried to clean up the signal. "Under attack. Unknown vessels. Losing power." The voice was high-pitched and lilting, almost musical. "Definitely not human. Require immediate assistance. Coordinates transmitting. Please help." The message dissolved back into static. Sedhana shared a look with Lai Wei, seeing her own surprise mirrored in his expression. First contact with an alien species was something every Starfleet officer dreamed of, but to have it happen now, on their shakedown cruise. She straightened in her chair. "Tashra, were you able to triangulate the source of that transmission?" The Andorian nodded, her antennae quivering with barely suppressed excitement. "Yes, Captain. It's coming from an uncharted system approximately 2.3 light-years from our current position." Sedhana turned to face the view screen. An uncharted system, a mysterious distress call, and a crew eager to prove themselves. The scientist in her was intrigued by the possibilities for discovery, but the captain knew she had to proceed with caution. There was too much riding on this mission to take unnecessary risks. Still, they had a duty to render aid if they could. And if they happened to make history in the process, well, that was just icing on the cake. "Helm, plot a course for the source of that signal," Sedhana ordered. Engage quantum drive when ready. XO, sound yellow alert and have the crew stand by for possible hostile contact. Aye, Captain, Lai Wei acknowledge. As the crew rushed to carry out her orders, Savannah leaned back in her chair, feeling the familiar thrill of anticipation tinged with apprehension. The Vanguard had been built for this, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one had gone before. She smiled wryly. How's that for living up to the recruiting posters? Whatever they found in that uncharted system, Savannah knew one thing for certain. The crew of the UES Vanguard would face it head-on with courage, skill, and no shortage of good old-fashioned human ingenuity. They were, after all, the best of the best, the vanguard of humanity's future. As the ship hurtled through the void, racing toward the unknown at breathtaking speed, Savannah allowed herself a moment of pride. The Vanguard was more than just a ship. She was a symbol of all that humanity could achieve when they put their minds to it, a shining beacon of hope in a galaxy full of uncertainty. And she, Captain Mira Sedhana, had the incredible privilege of being at the helm for this historic journey. Come what may, she would ensure that the Vanguard and her crew met every challenge with unwavering resolve. For they were the Vanguard, the tip of the spear, the first and last line of defense for all humanity. And they would not falter, no matter what the universe threw at them. The quest began now. First contact. The quantum flux drive hummed with power as the UES Vanguard tore through the fabric of space-time, racing toward the source of the mysterious distress signal. On the bridge, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation and trepidation. Captain Mira Sedhana gripped the armrests of her command chair, her dark eyes fixed on the view screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring the ship's systems and scanning for any sign of trouble. Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the distress signal, reported Lieutenant Ava Moreno from the helm. Dropping out of quantum drive in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered almost imperceptibly as it decelerated back into normal space. The view screen filled with the sight of a binary star system, twin suns blazing against the endless black of space, and there, silhouetted against the larger of the two stars, were two ships locked in combat. Magnify, Savannah ordered, leaning forward in her chair. The image on the screen zoomed in, revealing the details of the dueling vessels. One was long and sleek, with graceful curves and shimmering silver hull plates. The other was a jagged mass of dark metal, bristling with vicious-looking spikes and pulsing with malevolent red light. As the Vanguard washed, the dark ship unleashed a barrage of crimson energy beams that slammed into the silver ship's shields, making them flare and spark. The silver ship returned fire, lancing out with beams of pure white light, but the dark ship seemed to shrug off the hits with ease. The silver ship matches the energy signature of the distress signal, said Tashra, the Andorian communications officer. They're hailing us. On screen, Savannah said, standing up from her chair. The view screen flickered, and the image of the battling ships was replaced by the visage of an alien being. It had pale blue skin, large almond-shaped eyes of purest amber, and a crest of iridescent feathers sweeping back from its brow. It was undeniably beautiful, in an exotic, almost ethereal way. Greetings, the alien said, its voice musical and melodic. I am Commander Zilara of the Zithan starship Serenity. We are under attack by Crocs raiders and have sustained heavy damage. We implore you, please assist us. Sadhana stepped forward, acutely aware of the historic nature of this moment. I am Captain Mira Sedhana of the United Earth Ship Vanguard. We come in peace and are willing to render aid. Can you tell us more about your situation? Zilara's feathered crest drooped in what Sadhana interpreted as a sign of relief. We were ambushed while conducting a routine survey of this system. The Crocs are ruthless pirates who prey on the weak and undefended. Our shields are failing, and we have lost main propulsion. Without your help, we will surely be destroyed. Sadhana glanced at her executive officer, Commander Lai Wei, who gave a subtle nod. The Vanguard was more than a match for a single pirate vessel, no matter how vicious it might appear. She turned back to the view screen. "We will do what we can to assist you, Commander Zilara. Stand by." The alien bowed its head in gratitude as the transmission ended. Satana turned to face her crew, a determined set to her jaw. "Red alert, all hands to battle stations," she ordered. "Helm, bring us in closer to the Zithan ship. Tactical, lock weapons on the Crocs vessel, and prepare to fire on my command." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew rushed to carry out her orders. The Vanguard surged forward, her powerful engines driving her toward the embattled alien ships with astonishing speed. As they drew closer, the dark shape of the Crocs raider loomed larger on the view screen. It was an ugly, brutal-looking thing, all jagged edges and pulsing red lights. Satana felt a shiver run down her spine as she imagined the kind of creatures that would build such a ship. "We're being hailed by the Crocs vessel," Tashra reported, her antennae quivering with tension. "Ignore it," Satana said, her eyes narrowing. They had their chance to talk when they attacked a defenseless ship. Now it's time for action. She turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Reese Harden. "Target their weapons systems and engines. Fire when ready." Harden grinned, his fingers already dancing across his console. "With pleasure, Captain." The Vanguard's particle beam cannons and plasma torpedoes leaped out, lancing across the void to slam into the Croc ship's shields. The raider reeled under the impact, its own weapons fire faltering as it struggled to reorient itself. "Their shields are down to 60%, Harden reported, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "Looks like they weren't expecting to run into someone who could fight back." Satana allowed herself a small smile. The Vanguard might be new, but she was far from helpless. The Crocs were about to learn it the hard way. "Press the attack," she ordered. "Let's show them what human ingenuity can do." Under the Vanguard's relentless barrage, the Crocs' ship's shields flickered and died. Explosions blossomed across its hull as the Earth ship's weapons found their marks, tearing through armor and vital systems with ruthless efficiency. In a matter of minutes, it was over. The Crocs raider drifted, broken and powerless, its weapons silent, and its engines nothing more than smoldering wreckage. "The Crocs are hailing us again," Tashra said, a note of surprise in her voice. "Audio only." Satana nodded. "Let's hear it." A harsh, grating voice filled the bridge, dripping with malice and barely controlled rage. "You think you have won, Earthlings. You think you can interfere in our affairs with impunity. You know nothing of the true powers that lurk in the depths of space. We will have our revenge, and your precious ship will be nothing but scattered atoms when we are done with you." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Satana exchanged a look with Lai Wei, seeing the concern in his eyes that mirrored her own. "It seems we've made an enemy today," she said quietly. "And perhaps a friend as well," Lai Wei replied, nodding toward the view screen where the sleek silver shape of the Zithan ship could be seen, battered but intact. Satana took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. The Vanguard's first contact with alien life had been a baptism by fire, a stark reminder that the galaxy was a dangerous place filled with both wonders and threats. But they had prevailed, thanks to the skill and courage of her crew. And in doing so, they had taken the first steps into a larger universe, one where humanity would have to find its place among the stars. It was a daunting prospect, but as Satana looked around at the determined faces of her bridge crew, she felt a swell of pride and confidence. The Vanguard and her crew were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. They were the vanguard of Earth's future, after all. And they would not falter, no matter what the cosmos threw at them. Baptism by fire. The Zithan ship hung in space, its graceful silver hull marred by scorch marks and damaged sections. On the bridge of the UES Vanguard, Captain Mira Sedana watched the view screen intently, her mind racing with the implications of what had just transpired. They had intervened in a conflict between two alien races, the Zithan and the Crocs, and in doing so had made both a potential ally and a definite enemy. The Crocs' parting words still echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked in the depths of space. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Zithan ship," said Tashra, the communications officer. Sadhana nodded. On screen. The view screen shifted to show the bridge of the Zithan vessel. Commander Zilora stood at the center, her feathered crest quivering with emotion. Around her, the Zithan crew worked to repair the damage to their ship, their movements graceful and efficient. "Captain Sadhana," Zilora said, her voice filled with gratitude. "On behalf of the Zithan people, I thank you for your timely intervention. Without your aid, we would surely have been destroyed." Sadhana inclined her head. "We were happy to assist, Commander. But I must ask, what is the nature of your conflict with the Crocs? We are new to this region of space and do not wish to become entangled in a war we do not understand." Zilora's crest drooped, a sign of sorrow and weariness. "The Crocs are a plague upon the galaxy," she said. "They raid and pillage without mercy, taking what they want and destroying what they cannot. They have no honor, no compassion, only an insatiable hunger for power and riches." She paused, her amber eyes filled with pain. "My people, the Zithan, are peaceful explorers. We seek knowledge and understanding, not conflict. But the Crocs see our ships as easy prey, and they have attacked us without provocation time and again." Sadhana frowned. The situation was more complex than she had initially thought. The Vanguard's mission was one of exploration and diplomacy, not warfare. But could they really stand by and watch as innocent beings were slaughtered by pirates and raiders? She glanced at her executive officer, Commander Laiwi, who gave a subtle nod. They were both thinking the same thing. The Vanguard had the power to make a difference here, to stand up for what was right. But doing so could have consequences that reached far beyond this single encounter. Sadhana turned back to the view screen, her decision made. "Commander Zilora, the United Earth Ship Vanguard stands ready to assist you in any way we can. We cannot abide the kind of wanton destruction and cruelty the Crocs seem to represent." Zilora's crest quivered with relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Captain. Your support means more than you can know. Together, perhaps we can bring an end to the Crocs' reign of terror." As the transmission ended, Sadhana felt a sense of unease mixed with determination. The Vanguard had just taken a momentous step, one that could shape the course of human history. They were no longer just explorers and diplomats, but defenders of the weak and oppressed. It was a heavy burden to bear, but one she knew her crew was more than capable of shouldering. They were the best of the best, chosen for their skill, their courage, and their unwavering commitment to the ideals of the United Earth. "Helm, set a course to escort the Zithan ship back to their home system," Sadhana ordered. "Tactical, maintain high alert status. If the Crocs come back for another round, I want to be ready for them." As the crew rushed to carry out her commands, Sadhana settled back into her chair, her mind already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before them. The Vanguard had been forged in the crucible of human ingenuity and determination, a shining symbol of all that Earth could achieve. Now, that symbol would be put to the test as never before. The Vanguard would stand as a beacon of hope and justice in a galaxy torn by strife and oppression. They would face down the Crocs and any other threats that dared to menace the innocent and the defenseless. For they were the vanguard of a new era, the first line of defense against the darkness that lurked between the stars. And they would not falter, no matter the cost. As the ship leaped forward, the quantum flux drive humming with barely restrained power, Sadhana felt a thrill of exhilaration mixed with trepidation. They were plunging headlong into the unknown, into a future that held both wonders and terrors beyond imagining. But they would face that future head-on, armed with the strength of their convictions and the unbreakable bonds of their fellowship. They were the crew of the UES Vanguard, and they would carve their names in the annals of history through the sheer force of their will and the depth of their courage. The stars beckoned, And the Vanguard answered. The greatest adventure of their lives had only just begun. Repercussions. The journey to the Zithan homeworld was a tense one. The crew of the UEA's Vanguard on constant alert for any sign of Krok's retaliation. But the sleek silver ship of their new allies made it safely back to their system without incident, escorted by the looming bulk of the Earth vessel. As the Vanguard took up orbit around the lush green planet the Zithan called home, Captain Immerse couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. Here was a world untouched by human hands, a place of breathtaking beauty and alien mystery. But there was little time to dwell on the marvels of a new world. No sooner had they arrived than a priority message came through from Earth Central Command. Savannah took it in her ready room, the lined face of Admiral Jonah Prescott filling her view screen. Captain Savannah, the Admiral said without preamble, his tone grave. We've received your report on the incident with the Kroks and the Zithan. You've certainly kicked over a hornet's nest out there. Savannah straightened in her seat, her expression carefully neutral. We did what we believed was right. Admiral, the Kroks were slaughtering innocent people. We couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Prescott sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I understand your reasoning, Captain. And for what it's worth, I agree with your decision. But not everyone sees it that way. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. The Galactic Council is in an uproar. Some are praising your actions as a heroic defense of the defenseless, but others are condemning it as a reckless interference in the affairs of other species. Savannah frowned. The Galactic Council. I wasn't aware Earth had any formal contact with them. We don't, Prescott said grimly. But apparently your little skirmish has put us on their radar in a big way. They're demanding answers, wanting to know who we are and what our intentions are. He fixed her with a pointed look. They're especially interested in the capabilities of the Vanguard, a ship that can take on a Krok's raider and win. That's not something they see every day. Savannah felt a chill run down her spine. The Vanguard was Earth's most closely guarded secret, a technological marvel years ahead of anything else in known space. If word of her true capabilities spread, what do they want from us? She asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. For now, just information, Prescott replied. But there are factions within the Council that see humanity as a potential threat. They're arguing for sanctions, for restrictions on our expansion into space. He leaned back, his expression somber. I won't lie to you, Captain. The situation is tense. One wrong move could lead to disastrous consequences for Earth. Savannah took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility settling heavy on her shoulders. What are our orders, Admiral? For now, continue your mission, Prescott said. Establish diplomatic relations with the Zithan. Gather what intelligence you can on the Kroks and other potential threats. But tread carefully. The eyes of the galaxy are on you now. As the transmission ended, Savannah stared at the blank view screen, her mind racing. In the span of a single day, the scope of their mission had expanded beyond anything she could have imagined. The fate of not just the Vanguard, but of all humanity, now rested on the decisions she would make in the coming days and weeks. She thought of her crew, of the brave men and women who had signed on for a mission of exploration and discovery, not interstellar diplomacy and warfare. They were scientists and dreamers, not soldiers and politicians. But they were also the best of the best, chosen for their skills, their courage, and their unwavering dedication to the ideals of the United Earth. If anyone could navigate the treacherous currents of galactic politics and emerge unscathed, it was them. Savannah stood, squaring her shoulders. She had a duty to her ship, to her crew, and to her species, and she would not falter, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. She strode out onto the bridge, the eyes of her crew turning to her expectantly. Lieutenant Tashra, open a channel to the Zithan High Command. It's time we had a talk about the future. As the view screen filled with the image of the alien city, its spires of silver and crystal glinting in the light of an alien sun, Savannah felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with trepidation. The Vanguard had been built to explore the wonders of the universe, to push the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding. Now they would have to use all of their skill and ingenuity not just to explore, but to navigate the treacherous shoals of interstellar politics. They would have to forge alliances, gather intelligence, and stand firm against those who would seek to undermine or destroy them. It was a daunting task, but one Savannah knew they were more than equal to. For they were the crew of the UES Vanguard, the vanguard of humanity's future, and they would not be cowed by the challenges that lay before them. As the first tentative greetings were exchanged with their new Zithan allies, Savannah allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The Vanguard had already accomplished great things, had already made a mark on the galactic stage. But their greatest trials were still to come, and she and her crew would be ready to face them head-on, armed with the strength of their convictions and the unbreakable bonds of their unity. The repercussions of their actions were only just beginning to be felt. But whatever the future held, the Vanguard would be ready. For they were the best of the best, the brightest hope of a brave new era. And they would not fail. The Gauntlet. The attack came without warning. One moment, the UES Vanguard was cruising through the void, her quantum flux drives humming with restrained power. The next, the ship was rocked by a series of bone-jarring impacts, alarms blaring as the lights dimmed to emergency levels. On the bridge, Captain Mira Savannah gripped the arms of her command chair, fighting to keep her balance as the deck heaved beneath her feet. "Report," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Multiple incoming hostiles." Lieutenant Commander Reese Harden called out from the tactical station, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's the Crocs, Captain. They'd got us surrounded." Sadhana's eyes narrowed as she took in the tactical display. At least a dozen Crocs raiders were closing in on the Vanguard from all sides, their ugly, spike-studded hulls bristling with weapons. It was an ambush, carefully planned and executed with ruthless precision. "Shields up, all weapons online," she ordered, her voice calm and controlled despite the fury burning in her heart. The Crocs had lured them into a trap, no doubt seeking revenge for their earlier humiliation, but they had no idea what they were up against. The Vanguard might be outnumbered and outgunned, but she was far from helpless. Her quantum shields could shrug off all but the most powerful of impacts, her pulse cannons and plasma torpedoes more than a match for anything the Crocs could throw at them. But even as Sadhana watched, the raiders began to circle, their movements coordinated and precise. They were herding the Vanguard, trying to drive her into a pre-planned kill box where they could unleash the full fury of their combined firepower. It was a clever tactic, one that spoke of a level of strategic thinking Sadhana had not expected from the brutish Crocs. They had underestimated their foe, and now they were paying the price. Evasive maneuvers, she snapped, her mind racing as she tried to find a way out of the trap. "Keep our distance. Don't let them pin us down." The Vanguard leaped and spun, her thrusters flaring as she wove a dizzying path through the void. But the Crocs pursued relentlessly, their ships faster and more maneuverable than their size would suggest. Sadhana gritted her teeth as another barrage of fire slammed into the Vanguard's shields, making the whole ship shudder. They couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, the Crocs would wear them down, and then, "Captain, I'm picking up a new contact on long-range sensors," Lieutenant Ava Moreno called out from the helm, her voice tight with strain. It's the Zithan, Mom. They're coming in fast." Sadhana's head snapped around, her eyes widening in surprise. The Zithan. What were they doing here, in the middle of a Croc's ambush? But even as she watched, a new fleet of ships dropped out of warp on the edge of the battlefield. Sleek and silver, they bore the graceful lines and shimmering hulls of Zithan design, and they were armed to the teeth, bristling with weapons and energy shields. Incoming transmission from the Zithan flagship. Lieutenant Commander Tashara reported from the communications station, her antennae quivering with excitement. On screen, Sadhana ordered, hope surging in her heart. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Zithan ship, Commander Zilara stood at the center, her feathered crest flaring with determination. "Captain Sadhana, I hope we are not too late." Sadhana shook her head, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Your timing is impeccable, Commander. We could use a little help here." Zilara nodded, her amber eyes glinting. "The Sithins stand with you, Captain. The Crocs have preyed on the innocent for too long. It is time they learned the price of their cruelty." With a flash of silver, the Zithan ships surged forward, their weapons blazing as they tore into the Crocs' formation. Caught off guard, the raiders scattered, their coordination shattered by the sudden onslaught. Sadhana leaned forward in her chair, her heart pounding with exhilaration. "All ships, engage the enemy. Let's show them what happens when they mess with the Vanguard." The bridge crew let out a cheer as the mighty Earth ship leaped into the fray, her quantum cannons and plasma torpedoes joining the Zithan barrage. Together, the two fleets tore into the Crocs, their combined firepower shredding the raiders' shields and hulls like tissue paper. It was a fierce and brutal battle, the void lit by the flare of explosions and the crackle of energy weapons. But in the end, the outcome was never in doubt. The Crocs, for all their savagery and cunning, were no match for the combined might of Earth and Zithan. As the last raider exploded into a cloud of shrapnel and debris, Sadhana slumped back in her chair, exhaustion and relief warring on her face. They had done it. Against all odds, they had beaten back the Crocs and emerged victorious. But even as the crew celebrated around her, Sadhana knew that this was only the beginning. The Crocs would not forget this defeat, and they would be back, hungrier and more vicious than ever. And there were other dangers lurking in the depths of space, other threats that the Vanguard would have to face. The Galactic Council, with its scheming factions and hidden agendas. The unknown species and civilizations that lay beyond the borders of explored space. But for now, in this moment of triumph, none of that mattered. The Vanguard had proven herself once again, had shown the galaxy what human courage and ingenuity could achieve. And they had forged a new alliance, a bond of friendship and shared purpose with the Zithan. Together, they would stand against the darkness, a shining beacon of hope and justice in a universe too often ruled by fear and oppression. Sadhana looked around at her crew, at the faces of the men and women who had fought and bled and triumphed alongside her. They were more than just a crew, more than just colleagues. They were a family, bound together by the unbreakable ties of shared adversity and shared victory. And as long as they had each other, as long as they held fast to the ideals that had brought them to the stars in the first place, Sadhana knew that there was nothing they could not achieve. The Vanguard had passed through the gauntlet of fire and emerged stronger than ever. And with their new allies at their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. For they were the best of the best, the vanguard of a new era of exploration and discovery. And they would not rest until the stars themselves were within their grasp. Unlikely allies, the battle against the Crocs had been won, but the cost had been high. The UEA's Vanguard limped back to the Zithan homeworld, her once pristine hull scorched and pitted with the scars of combat. In the ship's infirmary, the wounded lay in rows of neatly ordered beds, their faces drawn with pain and exhaustion. Captain Mira Sadhana moved among them, offering words of comfort and encouragement to her battered crew. They had fought with skill and courage, had faced down an enemy that would have broken lesser beings, but even the strongest spirit could only endure so much. As she stepped out into the corridor, Sadhana was met by Commander Laiwei, his face grave. "Captain, we're receiving an urgent transmission from Earth Central Command." Sadhana nodded, a knot of trepidation forming in her gut. What new crisis could be unfolding now, so soon after their harrowing victory? She followed Lai to the communications room, where the image of Admiral Jonah Prescott waited on the view screen. But the Admiral was not alone. At his side stood a tall, slender figure, its skin a shimmering blue, its eyes deep pools of liquid silver. "Captain Sadhana," Prescott said, his voice tight with strain. May I introduce Ambassador Zathras of the Galactic Council. He has come bearing news of grave import. Sadhana straightened, her eyes narrowing as she took in the alien diplomat. The Galactic Council had been a shadowy presence in their dealings so far, a vast and inscrutable entity whose motives and aims remained a mystery. Captain Sadhana, Zathras said, his voice a melodic whisper. I come to you in a spirit of friendship and cooperation. The Galactic Council has long watched the progress of your species with great interest. Your courage and ingenuity have impressed many among our ranks. Sadhana inclined her head, a gesture of cautious respect. I thank you for your kind words, Ambassador, but I sense there is more to your visit than mere flattery. Zathras smiled, a rippling of silver skin. Indeed, Captain. The Council has convened an emergency session to discuss the growing threat of the Crocs. Your recent victory against them has shown that they are a greater danger than we had previously believed. He paused, his eyes meeting Sadhana's with a piercing intensity. We have come to the conclusion that the only way to stop the Crocs is through a united front, a coalition of species working together to defend the innocent and preserve the peace of the galaxy. Sadhana's eyebrows rose, surprise and disbelief warring on her face. You're proposing an alliance between the Council and Earth. Zathras nodded. Yes, Captain. The Vanguard has proven herself a formidable force for good. With your help, we believe we can turn the tide against the Crocs and secure a brighter future for all. Sadhana's mind raced, the implications of the ambassador's words sinking in. An alliance with the Galactic Council would change everything. It would mean access to new technologies, new resources, new allies in the fight against the darkness. But it would also mean new responsibilities, new burdens to bear. Earth would no longer be just a small fish in a vast and uncaring universe. They would be a player on the galactic stage, with all the risks and rewards that entailed. She glanced at Admiral Prescott, saw the conflicting emotions playing out on his face. He knew, as she did, that this was a decision that would shake the course of human history for generations to come. But in the end, there was only one choice they could make. The Vanguard had been built to defend the innocent, to stand against the forces of oppression and tyranny wherever they might be found. And if the Galactic Council was offering them a chance to do that on a scale they had never before dreamed of. Ambassador Zathras, Sadhana said, her voice ringing with conviction. On behalf of the United Earth and her people, I accept your offer of alliance. Together, we will stand against the Crocs and all who would threaten the peace and freedom of the galaxy. Zathras bowed, his silver skin rippling with pleasure. The Council is honored to stand with you, Captain. Together, we will build a new era of cooperation and understanding between our peoples. As the transmission ended, Sadhana turned to Lai, a fierce determination burning in her eyes. Assemble the crew, Commander. We have work to do. Over the next few days, the Vanguard underwent a transformation. Zithan engineers and technicians swarmed over her hull, repairing the damage of battle and upgrading her systems with the latest in Council technology. In the ship's laboratories and workshops, human and alien scientists worked side by side, exchanging ideas and knowledge in a spirit of shared purpose. And in the ship's command center, Sadhana and her officers met with their new allies, planning and strategizing for the battles to come. The Crocs would not rest, would not stop until they had crushed all who opposed them. But now, for the first time, the forces of good had a fighting chance. As the Vanguard set out once more into the void, her crew stood tall and proud, their faces alight with a new sense of purpose. They had faced the gauntlet of fire and emerged stronger than ever, had forged bonds of friendship and common cause that would stand the test of any trial. And with their new allies at their side, they knew that there was nothing they could not achieve. The stars themselves would tremble at their passing, and the enemies of peace and justice would flee before them in terror. For they were the Vanguard, the shield and sword of the United Earth, and they would not rest until the galaxy was free. The end.